other places. Then we'll upload it to YouTube when we're done. And I think we're live. All right, awesome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lara
Yeah,
Smith.
every time I do that, Laura starts talking because that's the. Love Laura, but she doesn't need to be on tonight's video. So welcome everybody to a special Christmas week version of the Bench Doctor. We decided to go ahead and just keep going. I'm not sure we're going to do it next week because that's an off week for everybody, but maybe we will. We'll talk about that towards the end. Tonight, Scott's going to take apart a Model 10 and do a special unboxing of a random piece of crap that he bought online. So it'll be very exciting, and YouTube won't let us live stream it, so we won't live stream it there. But we are live on Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook. At least I believe we are live on all three of those things. Every once in a while, one of them fails. Nope, says we're online. So if you have questions, drop them there. A couple of us are monitoring those channels. If you're here on the Zoom, obviously put it in the chat. Being on the Zoom is the best way to get your question answered because that's the first place we're going to look. And our lovely moderators, Danielle and Kyle, are going to be monitoring the various and sundry channels and collating questions and asking those questions of Scott as the opportunity presents itself. So I'm going to get the hell out of the way and let Scott introduce what he's planning on doing tonight because it looks like a lot of fun. And I'm hoping to learn something about the particular gun that's on the screen because I've got two of them and I need to take them apart. So, Scott.
All right. Well, thank you for joining. And it's always fun to come online and do this stuff and humiliate myself with my inability to get guns back together and hitting them with hammers. But so tonight, I don't know, on the Facebook page, the Members Lounge Facebook page, Jim Colville a couple of weeks ago said, "Oh, hey, I just found these 10.5 Smith & Wessons at Gander Mountain." And I didn't have, currently don't own a Smith & Wesson revolver. I've taken some apart over the years and worked on them, but never a 10 series. So I jumped at the chance to buy one. I think they were $269 and picked it up, brought it home and took it apart and cleaned it. It was filthy. My understanding is that it was imported from Jordan. I could be wrong. But it does have the Century Arms importer stamp on the butt of the gun. And there was just sand and crud just baked into this thing, and it was bone dry. So I took it apart and cleaned it and was thinking about it. And I thought, well, these are pretty common. And Smith & Wesson lock work is fairly similar between models. So I thought it might be kind of fun to show people how to take one of these apart and get in there and put it all back together. But before that, I was saying something to Danny last week about I'd ordered a gun and it had come in last Tuesday. And she wouldn't let me open it. She said, no, you got to open it next week online. And it's an auction purchase. It was really cheap. It's a really interesting gun, but probably not worth what I paid for it, frankly, nor will it be worth anything like what, that after I'm done with it. But it is really a cool gun. So I'm going to go ahead and show it to you. And since I currently have a Type 3 FFL, which allows you to buy curios and relics, guns that are over 50 years old, can be sent directly to your door if you have a Type 3 FFL. And so I thought, well, I bought this with my Type 3 and it came right to my door. So in the last week, I've had guns, gunpowder, and loaded ammo delivered to my door. So my FedEx guy thinks I'm an insurgent or Antifa or something. But anyway, since I bought it with my FFL, I have to log it in to my book. So I thought I'd show you guys what it's like. So you take a copy of a PDF copy of your FFL and you send it. In my case, I sent it to the auction house. They ask for your FFL information. If it's a CNR gun, you send them that. They turn right around and ship it right back to you. They ship it to the address of the FFL. So if your address where you got your FFL isn't current, you need to make it current. They send it to me. It shows up. It's an adult signature required, so you need to be home. they'll send you a tracking number, and you need to be home to receive it. And when you get it, you then log it into your book, which means it's since it was purchased through your FFL, this is how you track it. So you log it in. There's information in there about the gun, and then if you sell it or trade it, you log it out of your book, so it's no longer in your inventory. But I thought it would be kind of interesting to show everybody how that works. So here's the box. I taped over any kind of incriminating evidence, my name and address. But so we're going to go ahead and open this thing up and take a look and see what we got.
We have our first question while you're opening things up.
Okay.
What happened to your thumb?
I sliced the hell out of it with a piece of sharp brass. I was working with some brass wool, and I was kind of pulling it apart, and a strand of it sliced right down through my thumb, nice and deep and bloody. So, and it hurt a lot and bled a lot. Freaked my son out. So let's get this opened up. Okay, packing peanuts. And I don't know what else is in here. I'm going to go ahead and dump the peanuts out. I don't think there should be anything else in this box. Nope. Now I have packing peanuts all over the floor. And let me get the purchase order, whatever this is. Okay. Box aside. And what are they telling me here? So here's what I bought. I won't show it on paper, but it's just a receipt. And let's see, what is this? What is this? This is a copy of their FFL. So this is their FFL to go in my book. So set that aside. Let's open it up and see what it is.
Do you know what it is?
I do.
Okay.
But I bought it for a specific reason. It's really neat for what it is.
Sorry, but I have to chime in that the unboxing was a brilliant idea.
Oh, okay. Well, so look at this fine piece of American engineering. Let's check it first. Let's see, it's a brake top. So my first problem is I can't open the brake top. The brake top doesn't break. So I think that's how you do it. Let's see here. Just when in doubt, pry. Pry some more. There we go. So it's open, it's unloaded. First things first. So what this is a Harrison and Richardson 32 automatic. And when they call it automatic, it's because it automatically ejects the cases out when you're done. Like my old Webley, early on, I had my Webley pistol and took it apart, and it had the same thing that when this comes out and pops the shells out when it's done. So that's the automatic part of it. But the really interesting thing about this gun is, first of all, it's hammerless. So the hammer is inside here. It is a hammered gun. It's just covered up. But if you'll notice on this trigger, and they only did this on this particular model right here, there's a trigger within the trigger, like a Glock, like a modern Glock. So you can't pull the trigger unless you depress that lever as well. So, everybody thinks Glock invented that, and it's, it was new and interesting in the 80s. It's not new. This gun is from about 1897, and they already had that idea. So that's why I bought it. It was just the earliest version. I've never seen that before. And also it's the earliest version I've seen of the transfer bar safety, which comes up and blocks the hammer until the trigger moves it out of the way. So that transfer bar safety is covering the firing pin. So if you smacked it with a hammer, the hammer is just going to hit that transfer bar and not the firing pin. The trigger then moves it out of the way, which I'll show you on the Smith when I take it apart. It also has a transfer bar safety. But this is the first gun I've seen with all of these safety features. Kind of neat, kind of important. So you can see it's pretty rusty. It doesn't have a lot of deep pitting, but the finish is bad on it. So this is a perfect candidate to take apart and rust blue. I'm going to take it apart and throw it in a pot of boiling distilled water and convert as much of this rust from red oxide to black oxide and see how much of this original finish I can keep. I suspect that it will actually come out fairly decent. I'll post pictures of it online, but just thought it was a really cool little pistol. The problem is it's 32 black powder, and they of course don't make 32 black powder. So I've ordered some 32 smokeless powder, and I'm going to pull them apart and figure out how to load them with enough black powder to make it go bang without blowing the gun up. Anyway, that's
So it's black
Scott,
powder. Oh, sorry.
Is this what we're doing next week? You're going to show us how to take
I
it
don't know
apart and
yet.
work
I don't know yet. I don't know about next week yet. Let me think on
Okay.
that.
right.
So anyway, that's what this is. Harrison Richardson 32 automatic. And I got to get the serial number, but I don't even know if this has one. So I'm looking at all the usual places, which would be, anywhere on the frame. And I don't see a serial number anywhere on this gun.
Yoke or the butt.
Yeah, that's the next thing is take the grips off.
Is it 32 Smith and Wesson? I mean, it's
It's
32
32 short, I think is what it was
Short.
called. So I'll have to make some up. I think it's a rimmed. I don't even know what the cartridge looks like. I have 32 ACP, but I think this
those
is
will be
probably
different. 32 shorts and 32 long. It's just like, I'll send you some stuff.
Yeah, this is going to have to.
32s.
It's going to have to be a rimmed cartridge, which
Yeah.
32 ACP is not, because a revolver wouldn't take a non-rimmed cartridge without a moon clip. So I think the serial number is right under here. So once again, I'll caution you when you get something like this, be careful with the grips. You don't want to pry stuff because these have a lot of these old guns have little indexing pins. So just take your time in getting these grips off because you'll snap them. I have a gun on the bench that I had to order new grips for because somebody got impatient with it. So, see, it's got a little indexing mark, a little pin right here that corresponds to a pin on the grip here. And so what you'll end up doing is blowing that fragile plastic out. So that looks like a serial number to me. That's what I'm going to log it in my book as right here. And I think that's good enough. I'm not sure. I'll have to do a little bit more research and see if that is a unique identifier. I suspect it is. So now all I'm going to do is you get your book. This is what it looks like. And it's an acquisition. And then over here, you'd have a corresponding disposition for the gun. So I acquired it here. If I would say sold it to Ed, I would then put it here. That it's now out of my inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and log it in.
How old is that? When was it made?
1897. It might not even be required. It might not even be considered a firearm.
It may not be a firearm.
Yeah, because it's black powder. But I don't know, for the sake of, I'll finish this after. You don't want to watch me write, but that's the process. So when I sell it, there'll be a disposition record for it, and it moves on down to its next owner. All right, so let me get these parts out of my way. Let's get down to the topic at hand, which is the Smith & Wesson. I gotta get that glare.
Of just FYI.
Yeah, I know. I have a fabric over it, but it obviously not working well. So I wonder if I can. It's not from overhead. Where's it coming from?
While you're looking at that, I did a quick
hold on.
Google because the internet, and there was a proprietary 32 H&R long cartridge, which was 15 grains of black powder with an 88 grain projectile on top.
15 grains of black powder would turn this into a bomb. Hold on just 1 second. Let me go turn off the overhead light in the garage.
Well, while he's going away, there's a couple of
problem. We'll work on it. I'll try to work around the glare. I can see it on my monitor here.
Hey Scott, where did you buy that H&R from?
Proxy Bid is an auction site that has any given day several auctions going at once all over the country. And I use the what is it, war memorabilia and firearms category, and I just go through there, and you can make pre-bids before the actual auction starts. You can go in there and put a pre-bid on stuff, or you can just watch the item, and then when it comes up, you can log into the auction and bid on it live. I tend to throw my highest bid, what I'm willing to pay for the gun, in the pre-bid, and if I get it, great. If I don't, I'm not going to get caught up in the frenzy of overbidding for stuff in the heat of the moment. So sometimes I'll check my mail and like, wow, okay, cool, I won a gun. And then your credit card's tied to it, so they automatically bill your card, and then they let you know you won. Here's the shipping charge. We're sending it out, or what is your FFL information, and that's how it works. It's pretty neat. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this apart, and let's see if we can mitigate this glare a little bit. I don't know what to do about that. We'll have to fix it. Tilt it that way as much as I can. All right, so this is a model 10.5 from about 1963, from my understanding, and I'm going to take it apart. Here, once again, please use the right screwdriver bits. These are hollow ground screwdriver bits. These screws are cosmetic on these guns, so you can see them. So be careful not to chew them up. First thing I want to do is take my grips off. Get in here. Get all the fuzz off my fingers and bandages coming apart. Take the grips off. And once again, you can see they have this little roll pin to index off the grips off of. So be careful when you take these grips off. You can just tap them if they don't drop right out. Set those aside. I usually like to put the screw back in. Just keep it all together. And I'll show you something I do when I do something like this. This is for a different gun, but I have a couple of these trays with multiple compartments in it. And when I take a gun apart, if I'm not going to put it back together right away, I'll put like lock work in one section, screws in another, trigger parts, and I'll put them in a container like this, and then I'll close it and lock it up so that I don't lose track of things. And then I know what screw goes to what gun. I have 3 or 4 of those. They're labeled current projects, and then I'll just put a label on it with a Sharpie of what gun it is. So just a hint for you if you get into this kind of thing. So let's see here. Let's get this where we can see it. So once the grips are off, we now have to take the screws out. And these screws are interesting because there are 3 of them to hold this plate on, and they're all different. This one, my understanding, is custom fit for this particular gun because this is what retains the crane and the cylinder. These 2 look the same, but they're different lengths. And then this one is flat and sits flush with this plate because the grips come up over the top of it. So you're going to want to try to keep them apart or remember where they go because they do have a significance. So I'm going to go ahead and take these off. And just prop this up a little bit. I seem to have better lighting at that angle. You can kind of see how grody the finish is, but I'm going to leave this gun exactly as it is. I'm just going to do maintenance on it, take it apart, or finish lubricating it, and just run it because it works good. But it's not so far gone that it needs that I want to re-blue it. I kind of like guns with a lot of natural wear on them, a lot of honest wear. And it's not like it's ever going to be a super valuable gun anyway. And then a lot of collectors think that restoring them devalues them. So it's not always a good idea to restore them. I don't think an old Smith & Wesson 10 series is ever going to be horribly valuable. They made millions of them. I think it's probably the most produced handgun in history or something like that. I know it's a very common gun, but you can see here, these are all different. That one's short and flat. That one's longer. And then this is the one that retains the cylinder. So just so you keep those separate. Okay, now we can push our latch, release, slide our cylinder out. Okay, and then this just slides right off. Now there's a spring in here in this rod. I am not going to take this apart because it's working fine, and I just as soon not do that. My fine motor skills are a little impaired today anyway. But here's the crane, and you can take this and clean it, scrub it really well, get down in there and clean that with a jag or an oily patch and get the crud out of there. Set that aside. Then from here, to get this plate off, it's just like it's on the other side of the gun from a Colt, but to remove it is the same way. You don't pry it. Don't get under here and pop up on that plate. You'll break it, and I'll show you, or you'll damage it. You just give it a couple of taps with a hammer or something soft. It should just come right off. And if it doesn't come right off, get some Croil and just oil it. You know, oil it where the seams are and the screws, and let it set overnight and give it another try the next day. But unlike Colt, this plate has this little notch, a little node on it. Let's see if I can highlight that a little bit right there, that slips up under this part of the frame right here. So if you would have pried up on that, you would have probably bent the heck out of that piece. So, and right here is what I was talking about on that H&R, this little rod. It usually falls out when you take the gun apart because it's just loosely in there. But what this is going to do is when the hammer's back, so we can make it happen here, you have to push the release. So this rises up like that, and it blocks that firing pin. And then when you pull the trigger, it moves it out of the way and onto the floor. Anyway, I'll find that in a minute. So once that, usually that piece, that lock rod usually falls out when you take the plate off. If you turn it over, it just falls right out. So from here, we need to now remove this piece right here. And it's a little bit, let me get something here to brace this up with. It's kind of a fun one because there's a screw, there's a post right here, and then there's a spring that presses against that post. So to get this out, we need to compress that spring and then lift this piece out. And it's probably the most challenging part of this gun, with the exception of the detent that holds that piece in. So what I use is a little hooked screwdriver. I mean, a hooked pick like this. And then I kind of reach down in there and I grab that spring and kind of compress it as much as I can. And it's not always easy. And it may not work on this one. The other way you can do this is to get up underneath it a little bit from behind and kind of pry up. But when you do this, keep your thumb over this post, because you don't want that spring, once the tension's off of it, ejecting out across the room. So you just kind of lift up and you'll hear it pop. Oh, just hit me. It did pop out. All right, well, we're gonna find that now too. Lovely. All right, so that's kind of what's holding this all together. We got to get that out of there like that. Hold on a second. Let me turn on my overhead light and grab that spring. And I'll be right back. I'll find it in a minute. So once that's out of the gun, we can now remove our trigger and our hammer. Now to remove the trigger, we're going to have to move this hand out of our way, because you see it goes into the face of the frame there. So we kind of pull that back a little bit, and then you just wiggle this up just ever so gently, like so. Okay, there's your arm with the hand. Set that aside. Now at this point, we need to take our hammer out, but the hammer won't rotate back. Oh, we got to take our tension off of this mainspring. So to do that, there's a screw right here in the butt. This is the easiest spring to take out of any of the revolvers I've dealt with so far for these leaf springs. They can be pretty tight to get back in there, but this one just loosens the tension on it and it falls right out. Pretty neat. So this won't rotate back to allow us to get in there and get it out. So what you have to do is press your release back, and then this hammer slides right off the post. This is pretty dry, but okay. So now I'm not going to do this because my thumb, I can't put a lot of pressure on my thumb, but I'll explain it. There's a little detent in here. So this arm right here, your cylinder release is spring loaded. You can see it moving. It's spring loaded. And there's a little detent and spring that go up into the body of this arm. So you have to kind of pull that up and out of there. And that thing is under a lot of pressure. So getting it back in there is really troublesome with two working thumbs, but with only one working non-dominant thumb, I'm not going to do it. But that's how you would get that out of there. You'd also have to take this screw off. This piece comes off, and then you can remove that lever. We also have our cylinder stop right here. And to get this one out, you'll notice that it's raised inside here. You know, this is where it latches in to these notches. So we need to get that. It won't come out of there if it's in that raised position. So we have to kind of bring it down a little bit. And I kind of pulled down on it with this hook. And then you can come straight up with pulling this whole piece out. And this is kind of a weird one to get out of there because it's, I think whoever had this gun prior, maybe it was the Jordanian police, did a good job of at least keeping the springs in good shape, because I think they're all new. Honestly, they look pretty new. So let me get this out of here and show you how this works. And this spring doesn't tend to come flying out, but I'll show you this piece. Okay. That spring's not under a lot of tension. So here's the piece, the cylinder stop, and then that's the little hole that the spring goes into right there. And so that spring pushes down into, there's a little recess right in here. And that's what is pushing up on that or on the lock. So that's all the lock work out of one of these, completely stripped. Now that's as far as I go with any revolver. I would never take the barrel off unless I absolutely had to, if there was a need to remove it or re-headspace it or something. There's also a little roll pin here for this spring-loaded device for that ejector rod. It's working. I put a couple of drops of Croil down there, and it seems to be working fine. So I'm not going to drive that little pin out, because the finish is still half decent in this area. And I do not want to mess with that pin and damage it. I can't see any reason to take it apart at this point. You know, just for you guys, if I needed to, I would. But there's also a roll pin here on these old Smiths. You can tell the really old ones. I think this changed maybe in the late 70s or early 80s. There's a pin here along the barrel's threaded, and then there's a pin to hold it in place. The newer ones, you'll notice on a modern one, does not have that pin in it. So you'll see on advertisements, you know, on guns for sale, that it's a pin barrel, and that's what they're talking about, is that pin right there. To get the barrel off of one of these things, you need a special jig to hold. It's contoured for this frame, and then you could spin the barrel off, because what some people will do is throw these in a vise, grab the old barrel with like a pipe wrench or something and just spin it off, but you're going to crack and damage the frame doing that. So what you can do is take a couple of wood blocks and carve them to match the contour, or use a router or something to match this contour and to give it some stability. But Brownells makes special jigs to hold these in place. They're not terribly expensive. I don't recall the price, but if you're going to work on a lot of these, that's what I would end up getting. So you want to put this thing back together. Let's go. All right. So first thing we'll do is put this little cylinder stop back in, and it fits down on top of this little post right here. You'll see a little post right in there. So I'm going to get the spring in there, and I'm sorry if I'm blocking your view. There's just no other way to get in here and do these little tight sub-assemblies without blocking your view. So what I'm doing is pushing in on the spring and down on the cylinder stop to kind of get it to go in there. But I've got a series of videos that I've been recording over the last week of, I have an old Colt police positive that I bought, and this finish on it is just god awful. Somebody went to it with a wire wheel, which don't ever do that. If you need to know how to try to save the finish on a gun, I'll tell you, but a wire wheel isn't the answer. Anyway, they had just ruined the finish on it, but it was a perfectly functioning, decent little gun. And so I took it on as kind of a project to document the process of conserving one. And those should be up at some point in the near future. But Paul, our video guru, is got to clean them up and remove all the cuss words and foul language before. It was in the process of doing that gun that I screwed up my thumb. All right, let's go with this little spring. All right, sorry for the block here, but it almost. Yeah. Someday I'm going to start having nightmares about springs. Now you imagine as much as I'm struggling with this one, how I'd be doing with that one. That one is a beast to get in there without bending. It's so thin and so tiny that I worry about bending it. Parts are pretty available for this gun though, so it's not too bad. If you do bend it, you just have to wait a week for somebody to send it to you. Boop, boop, boop. So Ed, if you're going to do one of these, you probably don't need to take this part out unless you're putting new springs in it. If you don't want to struggle like I am with it. And I bet you that Smith probably makes a tool for doing this, and I don't own it. So here we are. That doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. And on any one of these old guns, you will end up taking them apart and putting them together half a dozen times. It's just the way it goes. So get comfortable with the idea. And if you get frustrated, just put all the parts back in the box, go in the house, relax, watch a movie, come back out the next day and give it a shot. You'll get it. It's more an exercise in patience and having the right tools than it is anything else. And as you can see, I don't have the right tools. There we go. Now I need to get that rock back over. Oops. All right, a little spring pop out. Where'd a little spring go? Yep, that's the story of my life. The little spring went sprung. Anyway, well, we'll go without that one for the time being. So now what we have to do is get the trigger back in. So that fits down on that post. And we have this leg right here. That needs to be up. Put that in there on that post. This thumb is killing me. I cannot do anything. So there's our trigger with our hand. Now we have to put this back in there. So this spring goes in there this way. This little arm that we made, that I told you needs to be up, fits in this little detent right here. So it's just right under this little point. So what we have to do is drop this in place and then compress that spring in so that it's then pressing on this post. This is kind of a fun one to do too. So I don't like these. But I've gotten really good at finding springs. And my shop floor gets swept several times a week because of it. So I made, I used, Danny, do you remember that tool I made for you to fix your dad's revolver? I use that tool for this job now. So it's forever Danny's tool, but so what I do is I just use it to push on that spring and compress it without getting in the way of that post. And and push down as I'm compressing. This is a fun one. I hate this spring. I'm sure everybody's really wanting to take apart one of these now, right? So there, now it's in there. So as you can see, I'll try to get it up close. What I did was I had to compress that spring into the body of this piece and then slide this down, and then the spring retracts back into that post. So from here, now I can drop my hammer in, but I have to make sure that this lever is back. So you keep I keep my left hand on it, and I put this in over the post. But you got to kind of keep an eye on where your sear is too. So drop this in. Oops, get that out of my way. You want to make sure this is kind of up and out of your way too. This is what the mainspring latches onto. So I kind of pull that back, drop that down, get this in place. And a little bit of manipulation to get this. I probably should have gotten stitches in the thumb, but I was not about to go anywhere near an emergency room. Let's see here. Get this out of my way. Drop in there, baby. I only struggle with this stuff when I'm on the camera. I don't have this problem when I'm doing it by myself. So.
We are all anxiously awaiting the hammer.
Oh, no. Well, that shouldn't need it, I hope, unless something's gone horribly wrong. Okay, there we go. All right. Let's see what I need to do, and what's failed here is this, and it may not even be visible. This little tab on the trigger needs to be under this little tab. That's the sear. That's where it locks in. So I need to get this down there. So I might have to redo this a little bit. It just takes a little bit of fudging to get it done, but otherwise the gun won't work. Get this out of there. Rock it up. Yeah, that's always the problem with these things. A little equal pressure on all sides. Yeah, come on. Come on. Why are you being so difficult today? I can't put any pressure on this stupid thumb of mine. Neat though. I think this thing looks like it's color case hardened. I don't know if it is, but you can see the coloring on there. Looks like it's color case hardened like Colt stuff is. I don't know if it is or not. Why is it so white, so tight in there? So tight. Oh, this lever is irritating me to no end. There it goes. Incremental progress. Gently. I don't want to put too much pressure on this and risk damaging that post or breaking it off. That would be really bad. There we go. All right. So yeah, this is what I was saying this is the little edge right here. This little edge is the sear edge. So be careful with this too. Don't damage that, but it needs to be in the right orientation for the trigger. Otherwise it won't work. So try it again. That hammer, honestly, it's not this hard with two working hands. Oh, why are you doing this to me? Come on. Sorry, I'm off camera. I'm trying to do this with a good hand here. So I'll get this where I need it. Pull my lever back. Get this out of my way. Get that like so. This is really fun with one thumb. Okay, that needs to swing back. There we go. Should drop in. There we go. Nope, right back where I was. Darn it. Get my strong hand on this. Sorry, folks. I know this is what you tune in to see is me struggle, but all right. Why is this being so problematic today? It's a three-handed operation, and I only have one good one. So get that out of my way again. Get that notch right where I want it. Come on. Why are you doing this to me today? Oh, anybody have any jokes besides me doing this on camera?
Oh no, we're totally enthralled.
All right, there. So now you can see what I was trying to do. You see, I don't know if it's going to show up, but there's the little notch right here and the little leg coming up, the sear notch right there. That's what I needed to be engaged. So now you see it, the trigger dropped out of my way. So
I also think that fraying Band-Aid is giving everybody sort of jitters.
Heebie-jeebies. Let me, I'll cut it off screen here. I got to figure out how to do that with one hand. I know it's been bugging me too.
Because what could possibly go wrong?
Well, with a knife in my non-dominant hand, I don't know.
How about scissors?
I don't have any on, like right nearby. All right, so that's that. Now we need to get our mainspring back in here, which once again connects to this leg right there. Just kind of hooks up under there, and then it fits into this slot on the frame right there. So just give it a little push, get this screw out of my way. And it just drops in there. And then as you screw this down, it puts tension on the spring. Get out of my way. Drops right in. So it's in there in that slot right here, and it's hooked onto that back leg of the hammer. And then they tighten it down. And I've noticed that this does change the trigger pull. I don't know if it's something I want to mess around with, but maybe if you had one of these beaters, you just take it out and shorten that screw a little bit. I don't know. Might be kind of fun to play with, but I'm not going to do it. So that tensioned up that spring. Get this out of our way. Our lock work is back together. Single action. Now this part you'll see in the plate right here. There is it goes on this way. There's a notch right here that this piece fits into. So that if this isn't aligned right, this plate won't fit back on. So it fits over, the bottom of it fits over this little post in this spring-loaded piece. And it goes that way. And then it drops right in that gap right there between the hammer and the frame. And then as you put this back on, you have to kind of align it with this slot, the top of this slot. And then this little notch fits up under right here. So you kind of feed that up under like so. And if you got it right, it'll go right back on. It takes a couple of times for me usually to get this to drop right in place. I can feel a little bit of tension, so it's not quite right. These are not as easy as the Colt ones are. There we go. So that should be just drop right in place like that. You can see that it just dropped right in. If there's any tension at all, then you probably don't have that safety aligned. So cylinder back in. I'll go track down that little mini spring that I sent launching, and I'll put my stop back in after. But okay, so now
You don't want to take the spring off of the cylinder?
there we go. Yeah, I'm 100% sure. I'm gonna put my little flat spring back over here. This is the side it came out of. Drop that back in. And honestly, this is a lot easier than I made it out to be, because my thumb is hampering my ability to really put pressure where I need to with my dominant hand. So it really isn't that difficult, but this is very uncomfortable when you are injured through your own stupidity. I should have been wearing gloves as I was messing around with that brass wool, but I will never learn that lesson. But I christened my new bench with blood, so we're good there. I bought this bench at a government auction, and it's awesome. So happy to have it. Grips. Go right back on like grips, but you can see why this screw head is flat here, because this grip fits over and covers it. So you don't want to get that one in the wrong place. And go here. Make sure they're on the pins properly. I ordered some, I found some used Staghorn grips for this, which I thought were going to be a really cool addition. It'll either be a really good idea or a really bad idea, but it's going to get Stag grips. I think they're cool. And that is the last step of putting one of these together. So here we go. That's how to take them apart, put them back together. Hopefully that was useful and not too painful to watch. Any questions about that beast?
There aren't a lot of questions. There's one actually that we have remaining, unless someone would like to add questions in either the Zoom chat or the Discord chat. When you mentioned the transfer bar safety, it sounds like that transfer bar safety is different than the type that, say, Ruger would use on a single action.
Same idea. It's just mechanically different. The Colt has the same idea. In fact, I have one right here. I can show you how Colt does it. Let me take this one apart real quick. Colt does the same thing, just differently. It's all you're doing is interfering with the hammer, and the trigger is the only thing that removes the interference. And there's, each company kind of found their own way to implement that solution, because that all came about because the Colt single action Army, you always carried it on an empty chamber, so that if the hammer got bumped, it wouldn't hit the primer. And so this is how they solved that problem. Get that out of there. Okay, so right here in this gun, this is a Colt's police positive, and so here is the lock on the cylinder. This has a little post that goes in there and locks the cylinder in place, and then this piece right here And I've got to take this gun apart because it's activated by the trigger. But as you pull the trigger, it pulls this down and out of the way into this wide spot here so the trigger can travel all the way forward. This one isn't working quite right, but because it's connected to this really thin little plate here that has a post on the frame, and then there's a little post on the trigger. And so when you pull the trigger, it drops out of your way and allows the hammer to move all the way forward. Right now, you can see it creates a block so the hammer can't go as far as it would need to strike the primer. So this is how Colt did it versus Smith that has that bar that comes up and the trigger moves it out of the way. So that's just another way to do the same thing.
Well, the one I was referencing was the Ruger one where the transfer bar safety actually goes up. So the hammer hits the safety, or sorry, yeah, hammer hits the transfer bar and that hits the firing pin?
No, as you pull the trigger, the transfer bar drops out of the way. See, I don't know if you can see that. See, it's how it's locked in place right there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to pull the trigger and let the hammer down. You can see it drop. See it moving?
Gotcha.
So the trigger moves it out of the way. That's the only thing that will move that out of the way, if that makes sense. So that's their solution to the problem. It's just interesting that, everybody addressed it differently. I'll be curious to see how Harrison and Richardson did it on that little 32 S&W or 32 Colt. It'd be kind of fun to see what they did with it. But that's called a transfer bar safety. And on the old Colt single action, Ruger single action, like Security 6s or the little 3-screw 6-cylinder, 6-shooters, the original ones didn't have a transfer bar safety. And if you send them back, they will retrofit it with one, but the guns are more collectible without the transfer bar. So if you have one without the transfer bar, don't send it into Ruger, because they'll reduce the value of the gun for you. Anyway, that's that. I don't know if there are no more questions. Then I think I'm done abusing guns for the day.
There are no other questions that I have seen.
Okay.
Outstanding.
I could show you this is a working Colt. I could show you how that worked, but it works the same way.
Do it next week.
The lock work scaled up a little bit.
Next week, you don't know what you're doing, do you? Are you just
I'll
surprise us? Are you even doing anything
or nothing? I don't know. I will be around. I have nothing to do. Maybe I'll take apart that 32 and get it boiled and then put it back together if I can.
I think that sounds fun.
Yeah. Or and then in the meantime, I'm going to work on removing chrome and nickel plating.
Outstanding. Danny, do we got anything else on deck in the next couple of weeks, or it's almost Happy New Year? So
no.
Nothing planned.
No panels.
Well, I suppose.
So if anybody has any ideas, they're welcome to contact me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Send it our way. I know we've got a full slate coming up in January. We got some more experience panel stuff and more old gun crap that Scott's going to deal with. So I think on that note, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thanks all for coming. We will likely be on next week. Pay attention to the membership portal for the announcement. Make sure you check your emails, and we'll see you guys on Zoom next week. And if you're around tonight, obviously join us in the Discord server for our usual pub night.
All right. We shall see you shortly.